Hello, welcome to the Movie Review channel. Please subscribe the channel and like the video. Let's go to the video. Chadwick Boseman would always be the Black Panther that we would remember for the rest of our life. However, life keeps going, even in Wakanda. Death of Boseman at the age of 43 have left his friends and colleagues grieving. But Coogler takes the pain shared by Boseman's colleagues and fans alike and crafts it into an unexpectedly sober picture that explores the grieving process. And while not everything works, the Wakanda nation is threatened by a cerulean-hued aquatic warrior race, led by a mutant god called Namor Tenekhuerta, who is rather bewildering and inconsistent in his motives for conflict. The emotional core is raw, credible, and affecting. Let's take a moment and appreciate how Coogler has turned his sorrow into a movie dedicated to lose of his friend. You see, when Boseman sadly passed away, Coogler had already have finished the writing of new Black Panther movie. But then he decided to change the script in a way that Wakanda nation also grieve over loss of their Black Panther. In a way, the whole film is about Wakanda getting over the loss of its beloved king. His regal mother, Angela Bassett, has to convince the rest of the world that her country can stand up for itself without its legendary protector. His tech genius sister, Shuri, Letitia Wright, is too upset to follow Wakanda's sacred rites and traditions. And his girlfriend Nakia, Lupita Nyong'o, has to decide whether she wants a life in Wakanda at all. But I feel like Coogler and his co-writer, Joe Robert Cole, dispense with the initial mournful tone within a few scenes. There is a royal funeral sequence that looks like a fabulous street carnival, and then the film jumps to a year later when Wakanda has other problems to contend with. It's difficult to express, but as rousing and propulsive as the film is, there's clearly a sense of melancholy suffused throughout it, which the cast and filmmakers turn into a furious, barely contained energy, as if they are channeling the sorrow they feel into something transcending that grief. Which is what Black Panther, Wakanda Forever becomes in the end, finding a grace that will cause even the most jaded moviegoer to blink back the tears. The thought of playing pretend and having another actor try to embody the King of Wakanda would be a difficult mountain to climb for his fellow castmates and his loved ones, let alone audiences. This time it's Letitia Wright's Shuri, who steps up as Wakanda Forever's protagonist. 1 year removed from her big brother's passing, she's still having trouble reckoning with her grief. She has no interest in finding a solution to the riddle of the heart-shaped herb and becoming the new protector of Wakanda. And she certainly isn't ready to perform the mourning ritual taught to her by her mother, Queen Ramonda, Angela Bassett, and begin to heal. In one scene, Ramonda asks her daughter, "What construct does your mind create when you think of your brother? Does it offer you comfort or torment?" Shuri initially tries to run from her pain, which soon turns to vengeance when, spoiler alert, Ramonda is killed by Namor Tenekhuerta. Ultimately, Wakanda Forever leads the princess to a pivotal choice. She becomes the Black Panther herself and, in an act very reminiscent of her brother, spares Namor's life for the sake of mercy. And to be honest, doing this isn't easy. I mean, dragging a character into spotlight while it was supposed to be a sidekick doesn't work most of the time, but they did a great job here. Both writing and acting. Bassett's Oscar nod is well-deserved, stemming from 2 or 3 passionate speeches, one of which actually stands out among all the too much stuff of this movie. Without her, and to a slightly lesser extent, Wright, the grief and mourning content that gives the movie its emotional heft wouldn't be as potent. The beating heart of the film is meant to be Shuri, who is pulled in as many directions as the story itself, between grief-fueled vengeance and growth, between chaos and peace. The sharp-mouthed, highly intelligent younger sister archetype that Shuri filled never quite worked for me, but graduating her to a character saddled with so much devastation doesn't either. Wright can't find the intensity required, and she lacks the physicality to stand out in frames filled with more forceful actors. Lupita Nyong'o fares much better. I've missed the sight of her on screen. Her brightness as Nakia infuses a few beautiful moments in the film. Other characters feel mostly surface level in comparison, never fully rounded out with their own moments of bereavement or a fully rooted personality. Consider the spunky college student Riri Williams, Dominique Thorne, who is weighted down by the clunkiest jokes of the film. Guraira and Bassett, however, when given the space to do so, capably provide the complex characterization that is otherwise sparse, as a stunning moment in the kingdom's throne room, shot through with anger and deep longing, demonstrates. Cinematography and VFX. Wakanda Forever begins with the funeral of T'Challa, a sight tinged with joy and sorrow. Here, the film is at its most vivid and visually intriguing. T'Challa's coffin is carried through the capital of Wakanda by the tearful Dora Milaje led by Okoye, Denai Guraira. The cortege and people of Wakanda are dressed in all white, a striking touch from costuming legend Ruth E. Carter. While the faces of T'Challa's closest loved ones are solemn, the people of Wakanda move their bodies in an ecstatic dance slowed down to the speed of molasses. But the scene is all too brief. The editing, which gives the film a rushed quality here and a lethargic one elsewhere, works against what the sequence accomplishes. We're soon jettisoned into the thrust of the story. The design for Talokan is extraordinary, and the introduction of its warriors is genuinely eerie as they silently emerge onto ships, city streets, and Wakandan territory. But there's great beauty in the undersea kingdom as well, which sets up one of the movie's most powerful moral conflicts. Wakanda remains as glorious as ever too, thanks also to production designer Hannah Beachler, while DP Autumn Durald Arkapaw makes this one of the most visually stunning films in MCU history, not to mention the finest looking of Ryan Coogler's career. The action scenes specially have improved noticeably. Props must go as well to the VFX teams for also leveling up their game, amidst the many, and frankly justified, criticisms of late toward Marvel's VFX work, with far fewer shots than usual looking wonky or even a bit unfinished. Ludwig Göransson's pulsing yet mournful score pulls it all together, once again weaving African influences and cues into an orchestral tapestry that also hauntingly fits the mood. Especially I enjoyed water effects and underwater world. It worked very well as the main villain, Namor, and his allies use water, explode water, and all the things with slow-motion water. Fantastic. But the villain didn't get to live to my expectations. Yes, Namor is powerful, to be sure, but his introductions and scenes lack the regality that could make an undersea king feel fantastically unreal. The new Black Panther is meant to flex their muscles in the back half, but by then, an overstuffed quality has set in. The dexterous bliss that comes with the sudden explosion of superheroic energy is crowded out. Ultimately, Coogler and cinematographer Autumn Durald Arkapaw lose sight of the rich color and minute detail that make this comic world alluring and, instead, allow their picture to feel as busy as the gold and black costume of the new Black Panther. In Marvel Comics, Namor is the half-human ruler of Atlantis, but presumably Coogler and his team decided to make some revisions so as to differentiate Namor from Jason Momoa's Aquaman in the DC/Warner film. They needn't have worried too much about the comparison. The seaweedy realm of Talokan is more beautiful and well-realized than anything in Aquaman, and Namor's tragic origin story, which dates back to 16th century Yucatan, is more interesting. Namor's villainy, if it should even be called that, is rooted somewhere deeper, somewhere more human. He's cut from the cloth of classic MCU antiheroes. Like Wanda. Like Kong. Namor is regaled in paradox and not completely unjustified in his wrath. It's all in how nicely his backstory is propped. He is the descendant of a 16th century Mesoamerican tribe that fled enslavement and was forced to find refuge underwater. He's a survivor from a people who learned to survive under horrific conditions. His morals have weight. I don't know, it just didn't work for me, unfortunately. Still a marvelous disaster. Yeah, Wakanda Forever does a great job at pulling people's emotion, but it still is a Marvel movie, and we know how they tend to do sloppy job on plot holes and storytelling. What is lacking is a plot that will grip anyone who isn't already deeply invested in the geopolitics of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Without one central character to follow, it roams all over the place without picking up the breakneck momentum that the best superhero blockbusters have. It pauses for long discussions about the future of Wakanda and the history of Talokan. It checks in on old characters, such as Martin Freeman and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, CIA agents. And it spends plenty of time introducing new characters, such as a teenage Iron Man wannabe played by Dominique Thorne, and a Wakandan warrior played by Michaela Seal, the creator of the hit BBC series I May Destroy You. All 4 of those characters could have been edited out without much difficulty. An overstuffed soap opera that lasts almost 3 hours, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever might have worked better if it had been turned into a 6-part series for Disney+. It's a slow burn show, but sometimes it doesn't burn at all. One issue is that, after a couple of scenes set on US soil in the first half, the world as we know it is largely forgotten. Everything leads to a battle between Wakanda and Talokan, and as both countries are invented, and both seem like wonderful places to be, it's hard to root for a victory on either side. You can sit back and admire the tremendous craftsmanship involved, but don't expect to be drawn into the story. The hole left by Boseman hasn't quite been filled. A war, as it turns out, that isn't quite as persuasive as the animating principles behind it. Like the US government's relentless appetite for global influence. Or the all-consuming rage Shuri feels from the loss of her brother, and the very real way it drives her to action. It also has lots of extra pockets, sewn on to make room for all the characters audiences expect to see, as well as some new ones. Lupita Nyong'o returns as Nakia, essentially T'Challa's widow, but doesn't get a whole lot to do. Martin Freeman again plays CIA Guy Ross. His story feels wedged in. Dominique Thorne plays teenage super genius Riri Williams. She and Shuri forge a bond that's intriguing but barely explored. The movie's most compelling dynamic is the electricity between mother and daughter Ramonda and Shuri, but that, too, is frustratingly muted, despite Wright's agile charm and Bassett's beneath-the-surface warmth. Wakanda Forever, like many Marvel movies, just has too much plot. Because the Avengers have, for the moment, disassembled, it's no longer necessary to slot Wakanda and its heroes into a larger cosmic ensemble, which gives the busy narrative a welcome degree of focus and specificity. As in Black Panther, the questions of Wakandan identity, who will lead it, and what kind of a country will it be, are brought into relief by an apparent bad guy with a good or at least plausible answer. Personally, I think Wakanda Forever is too drab to work as a capable sequel, too unfocused to feel wholly consequential among the spoiling bombast of the larger MCU, too surface level in its characterization and thematic entanglements to function as a worthy memorial to a star gone far too soon. It is neither developed enough narratively nor complex enough politically. It is a film not about blackness or indigenous identity, though it hides behind the sheen of both. At the end, Wakanda Forever is a Marvel movie, for sure. But a pretty interesting one, partly because it's also a Ryan Coogler film, with the director's signature interplay of genre touchstones, vivid emotions, emphasized by Ludwig Göransson's occasionally tooth-rattling score, and allegorical implications. Coogler is a strong director still relatively early in his career, but his voice isn't evolving as much as it's rattling inside the morass of the ever-growing MCU. Who does Coogler want to be as an artist? What does he have to say about humanity? Black Panther, Wakanda Forever doesn't have the answers. Thank you for staying with us until the end of the video. Please write your opinion in the comments section and like the video and subscribe to the channel.